I do. It's so rare for players to hold out. Maybe we saw, I think about Chris Jones week 1,
Yeah.
Kansas City sitting out. That's kind of the most recent example, I suppose. I still think a deal gets done, but that's me operating from the place of it would just be so stupid if it didn't, that it has to happen. But the other thing that, Micah has working in his favor, aside from being one of the 3 best edge rushers in football, this defense is not good without him. There are holes at all 3 levels that have not been fixed, in my opinion. Defensive tackle remains an issue. Stopping the run, linebacker, huge question marks there. The cornerback room is incredibly injured. The case for this defense even being average or above rests entirely on them having a dominant pass rush. I like Donovan Ezeraku, who they drafted opposite him. You bring in Dante Fowler, you have good depth, but this does not work without Micah Parsons, and he must know that.
All right, to be continued on that subject because we know it's not going anywhere. Let's get to our other major story, which has been the Bengals. No secret that the Bengals defense is their weakness and has not looked good this preseason. But head coach Zach Taylor isn't worried about how Cincy's looked thus far. Take a listen, ladies and gentlemen.
We want to go out there and shut down every offense we play in the preseason and score a bunch of points on. But an overreaction to 5 to 10 plays, you're not going to get that from me. I can promise you that.
Okay, so while Taylor may not be concerned about the preseason, last year indicates there are legit concerns about Cincy's defense. There were 5 games last season. Cincinnati's defense allowed at least 35 points per game, second most in the NFL behind only the Panthers. Mina, after watching Burrow in the Bengals, what's your level of concern for them?
Red alert, 9 out of 10 at least. I'm overreacting because of what you just said, which was this defense was awful last year. It'd be one thing if they looked bad in the preseason, but they were coming off of even an average season. Then we could say, well, they're figuring some stuff out, new coaching staff, new players in the lineup. They were bad, and they still look bad. And I struggle to see a pathway for them to get significantly better. Talk about Trey Hendrickson and the need to pay him and get him on the field. That's fine. Chris, you know this. Trey Hendrickson can't do anything if teams are putting up 6+ yards a clip on them and gashing them on the ground the way that the Washington Commanders did. I mean, the run defense in that game was jarring, just major issues fitting the run at the first and second level of that defense. Trey Hendrickson isn't fixing that. Maybe young players will develop by the end of the season. I think that's why they went out and got Al Golden from the coaching ranks. But I do not see this defense making significant improvement this year at all.
Like Mina said, red alert, right? Because you understand how good this team could be. The Bengals, when you look at them, they have a quarterback and they got receivers. They have an offense that can win you a Super Bowl. But the defense continues to be the liability. And as Mina said, they haven't addressed it. You have a new defensive coordinator, but you have young players still. And what gets me about the Bengals is the Trey Hendrickson of it all. Because I don't feel as confident about that situation getting resolved. And I should, because it's so clear and blatant that they need him. The Bengals front office for a while, all offseason, kind of felt like they're stuck on the value for this player, that position. We don't want to give this much. We shouldn't have to pay this much to this guy because of the position. But you got to look at what he brings to the table and what he means to your unit. And the fact that we are still here and Trey Hendrickson is on the field, on the sideline, on a Monday night, being in position groups, talking to guys, and they still can't figure out how to make this work. I just feel like Joe Burrow is so talented that is this going to be another season wasted? And I don't want to look at any of Joe Burrow's years as wasted, and that's my fear.
Well, I'm operating under the assumption that the Trey Hendrickson deal is going to get done at some
point. Are you confident it will?
I'm confident that it will because they spent $70 million a year in wide receivers this offseason. If they're not signaling that they're going for it and they're trying to compete for a championship, I don't know what does. But here's where I come down with the Cincinnati Bengals at. If you believed in them enough last year that they could get to the playoffs despite having a bad defense, then you got to double down on them and believe in them this year because nothing has changed. They are the most one-dimensional team in all of football, and the strength of their team, the identity of their team, which is Joe Burrow in that offense, is incredibly unbalanced. So the one dimension that they do have is also one-dimensional. I don't know that there's a quarterback, a player in the NFL that has more pressure on them in terms of what they have to do week to week in order for their team to win than Joe Burrow. His team crosses midfield, he's got to get points. When they get in the red zone, he's got to get touchdowns, not settling for field goals. It's incredibly hard in terms of the hand that he's been dealt. But in no way, shape, or form do I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are doing him a disservice because Joe Burrow was out here caping for his guys to get paid this offseason. So what I will say is this, year over year, the biggest change, the biggest improvement that I expect from the Cincinnati Bengals is for them to be better earlier in the season because of what they've done in the preseason and putting their quarterback out there and Joe Burrow prioritizing making sure they get out to a fast start.
Before Mina jumps in, can I just get Christopher on this one point? Why are we understanding that it's not Micah Parsons' fault, it's not his responsibility to make all the pieces and make all the dollars and cents fit, but yet we're going to be mad at Joe Burrow for saying, hey, you know what? I'm pretty damn good. I'm also pretty damn good because we have two wide receivers that But you're saying because Joe Burrow wanted to be GM.
I'm not mad at them paying the wide receivers. I'm pro player all the time. I spent over a decade in the league. I want everybody to get paid their bag. What I'm saying is this. When your team is at the top of the league in percentage of cap spent on the offensive side of the ball, the defense being an impediment to your team getting to where you're going cannot be an excuse. That's my only point that I'm making when it comes to Joe Burrow. But I think the biggest difference that we're going to see in this team this year is them getting off to a fast start. The first two teams that they play had a combined 7 wins last year. The Minnesota Vikings, their week 3 opponent, they have a first-year quarterback starting. So I expect that the Cincinnati Bengals will have a winning record through the first 3 games of their season. And if they set the tone on their schedule that way, I believe that they will be in the postseason.
Mina, I want you to respond quickly, then we'll push it forward.
I actually find myself agreeing with Chris. I mean, the point he's making there about Joe Burrow. Look, we're not saying that, no, actually, Joe Burrow is the GM of the Bengals and he is completely responsible for the construction of this roster and how it's built. However, I feel like too often I see people on this program and others talking out of both sides of their mouths, saying Joe Burrow has the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the entire NFL. What a group of weapons. But oh my God, that defense, he is so put upon. You can't really have it both ways there. This was a decision that they made as a franchise. And yes, it is incumbent upon the team to do a better job of drafting and developing, no doubt. But the offense is stacked. That is not an excuse. Unfortunately, and I think I share Chris's concern here too, I do worry about the pressure to put up points leading to passing more on 3rd and longs, taking more sacks, more pressure behind that offensive line. And that could be difficult for them to play a more balanced brand of offensive football because of it. But as far as Joe Burrow goes, he did get what he wanted here, which was the 2 great wide receivers.
Can't blame him for that. All right, looking at the AFC North a little bit. So we know the Ravens are the favorites to win the division. I know how closely you follow this division. And Joe Flacco will be the starting quarterback for the Browns. So tell me this, which team do you have more questions about right now? Is it the Steelers or is it the Bengals?
Well, after that segment, how could it not be the Bengals? You know, I thought when Chris talked about the Bengals being a one-dimensional team, and when Mina mentioned red alert, there's reason. And I think for me, the bigger questions arise with the Bengals because I see that this is a team that could win a Super Bowl. They're that talented. When I look at the Steelers, I think I look at this as expectations. Like, I don't have the Steelers, to me, can be very good or they can be mediocre. When I look at the Bengals, I expect them to improve upon last year, which is get into the playoffs and be scary based off of the quarterback that they have. So I think the questions, again, with Trey Hendrickson, we've talked about this ad nauseum. What is his status? Will he be there week 1? And will this defense, it's going to be a liability, but will it be less of a liability than last year? I think that remains to be seen.
I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it ain't that close. It's because I don't believe in the quarterback. I just don't. They've pinned the regression of Aaron Rodgers on injuries that he suffered over the last 3 years. Whether it's injuries or whether it's age, it doesn't really matter. And here's the thing, as players get older, they don't get healthier. So I don't understand why everybody is falling into the hoax that is Aaron Rodgers year over year. We saw with the New York Jets, they were better off without him than they were with him. With the combination of Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, and Zach Wilson, they won 2 more games than when Aaron Rodgers started all 17 in 2024. You're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers being bottom 10 in the league when sacks allowed from last season. And, oh, by the way, they lost a 1,000-yard rusher in Najee Harris in free agency, a guy that's gone over 1,200 yards from scrimmage each of the first 4 years of his career. So when it comes to the Rodgers of it all, I struggle to see how he is going to raise the floor from what we've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last half decade. Having experience don't mean a damn thing if you physically can't go out there and do the job. And that's what I'm concerned about with Aaron Rodgers for 17 games in the regular season.
Okay, Mina, before you answer that question about the Bengals or the Steelers, obviously Canty shocking with a hot take, but do you also feel like the party's over for Aaron Rodgers and we're buying the hype that this resurgence can come with the Steelers team and the marriage of him and Mike Tomlin?
Well, he was a bottom 5 quarterback last year statistically, and I know folks say, did you watch him at the end of the season? I did watch him, and I believe he was a below average quarterback. And to Chris's point, I do agree. I don't see that getting better with age. I keep seeing people pull like Aaron Rodgers' career numbers. I'm sorry, you can't talk about NFL players that way at that age. Like his numbers in before 2020 are simply not pertinent to the player that we see right now. The premise for the Steelers, in my mind, is not based on Aaron Rodgers having a resurgence or being a savior. It's him being average and giving them competent point guard style quarterback play with a good run game. I am not worried about the loss of Najee Harris that Chris alluded to. I like the player that they drafted this year, Caleb Johnson. But this run game has to be quite good behind offensive line with questions at tackle for me to feel good about this offense. And I also have questions about the defense, by the way. They have a giant Baltimore Ravens problem, in case anyone who missed last season. That has to get better as well. So I think there's more questions about the Steelers because with the Bengals, I don't have any questions. I know the offense is great and the defense is terrible.
What it brings to my mind, again, is the floor and the ceiling of these two teams. It sounds like Christopher is very clear. Steelers are not going to be good. They're going to suck. That's clearly what he's trying to tell America. But when you look at the Bengals, again, do you see them being a legit foil for the Ravens, given the questions that they have on defense? Do you see them being a team that you definitely believe can go to Buffalo and beat Josh Allen, given the fact that Joe Burrow is trying to play without one unit actually helping him? I think, again, it's the floor to the ceiling. That's why, to me, it's like, who are the Bengals going to be? You think, Christopher, that they're going to start faster. I would damn sure hope so. But will they? I don't.
That is the lowest of bars to clear, though.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
What is your ceiling for the Bengals? With this great offense and terrible defense that we're all speaking of.
You know what? I hate... I am so confident in Joe Burrow. Like, this is a team, I expect them to I could see them being in the AFC Championship game. Wow. I could see it because of the QB. But again, the questions are mounting. That's the problem, because I think that's the ceiling for them.
Wow, the ceiling is the roof.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you. But I think that's my point. Like, I could easily see them going to the AFC Championship game, except everything has to kind of fall into place.
Mina, that was aggressive there. We got AFC Championship game. You buying that?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible in the playoffs. This team could beat a lot of teams 42-41. But I look at the AFC. I think that the Bills and Ravens and Chiefs are clearly a cut above when you look at the complete roster. And those teams have quarterbacks who are just as good.
Yeah, I think the Bengals have a greater degree of variance because they have a higher ceiling. But I also believe the Bengals have a higher floor than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we could be talking about the Steelers being in the territory of having the first losing season in the Mike Tomlin era, the first losing season that they've had in his 18 years of being the head coach.
We shall see. We'll leave it there when we come back.